How do? JR here. Welcome to episode 4 in our Open CARRACK development behind the scenes, see what JR does for a living sort of thing. We've got a fair amount done this last week. Bit of a recap of what we had on our plates last time. So we were starting with really dealing with how the wings worked in a landed and in flight state. We'd got some test prints, we've got some more now. So last week we'd sort of finished off the design work on these, and these were waiting to get printed. So we now have the in landed state wing with it sort of cocked out at 10 degrees and its landing gear down. So these are some images of those test prints, just sort of on a ignore this triangle thing, just so it holds up. So you can sort of see the landing gear in down here. So that's a Tough 2000 part, which goes into a single print of the wing, and then you can't see its plug because it's going into this sort of mock section of the fuselage. We have the turret, which is in a deployed position. So these turrets will pop in and out, so you can decide what turret you want on what wing. So there's loads of different iterations of how you want to display the model. We've also completed another test print of the in-flight wing. In this case, we've got the retracted turret into it. You can see a kind of bubble on that retracted turret. That's actually a weird print lining thing where you try and print a dome. So we've got that to fix. But they're looking okay. They're ready for detailing. You can sort of see the sort of big flat surface of that wing is completely plain. So all the geometry that we see in game of all the panel lines and all that kind of stuff, that's all done with texture maps and bump maps. So we need to go in and draw all that detail on by hand. That will be the last stage of this. Step 1 through 7 is to sort of fix all this geometry, break the model down into parts, get them all to fit together really nicely, get everything thickened up, get it to a state where we like the model, we like how the model gets built, we like how the model gets printed, and then we go in and take every single part and do all that detailing work. So that will come right at the end, so don't worry, they look really plain and boring at the moment, but all of that detailing will get put on at the end. So new stuff for this week, I've been focusing on the cargo pods. Now the cargo pods on the CARRACK are obviously very interesting. We have 3 pods that sit on the belly of the beast. They sit up into the ship. Now these skirts sort of look like they retract, but they don't. There's corridors inside them, there's nowhere for them to go, so the pods lower down to be deployed onto the ground. So we sort of see the majority of the bottom door, and we don't see any of the top door in this position. Now when we're approaching this as a model point of view, sort of bog standard that we need to be able to achieve is these pods need to be removable, so they'll be on magnets, and we want to be able to sort of put them in so that if there are variations in these pods later on, or just so we can have the model displayed without its pods in, we have that option really, really easily. Now, adding on to that, one of the things we want to tackle first and foremost is that these pods obviously can be deployed onto planetary surfaces or could be left on the deck of a landing pad or something. So we want to be able to make it so that these pods themselves are separate little diorama pieces that can exist independently from the model. So this is our second iteration of these pods. The first iteration we had it as a single print with an open top. Now that worked quite well. 2 main drawbacks were that you had to have touch point supports on one end or the other, which wasn't great. And the other thing was we didn't achieve this idea of having this as a separate diorama piece because the top was open, so that didn't work. So our options were either stick a lid on it, which kind of doesn't work, or take the doors off. So there's a pair of doors at each end of the pod that open up. So we sort of took those natural, very big break points of where those doors are to turn it into 3 pieces. So you can see here, this is our initial first test print of the fuselage. This was done very much to give me a sense of the scale of the model. It's remarkable how useful that is to be able to physically hold it and go, all right, that's going to be that big, that's going to be that big, oh wow, need to strengthen this thruster won't be too big, all this sort of stuff. And it's useful for this sort of thing because we can use it just as an analog for the final ship to see how things fit in. So we've got 2 pods, there's obviously room for a third in there. This is one sitting on its own, so you can sort of see the two end doors are separate pieces. So they look kind of natural because there is massive panel lines there because they are separate, physically separate pieces. So that's two side by side, one way, one the other. Again, there's no panel lining yet on these. That's all the geometry panel lines that are on it. There'll be more detailing to go on it. So that top surface will get some detailing as well, so it won't look just plain. But we quite like these. These will sit as sort of separate pieces. They'll sit a little bit closer together once they've been sanded properly as well, which is nice. And then this gives you an idea of what the middle section looks like. So this way of doing it, we can put the magnets on the inside and then put the doors on the end. So we can magnetize the piece without the magnets being visible in the end, which I think is quite a nice solution to this. It works for me from this point of view. Now, I'd also love to be able to take this a little bit further and actually have a pod that has its doors open so you can see the inside of it. Now, I think this is only really going to work as a diorama piece because I think it's an either-or thing on the magnetization. We'll have a think about it. There may be ways of faking it. There may be a way of having one with its bottom doors open that will sit into the ship with it lowered down, and have another one with all the doors open so you can see through it, maybe have a bit of cargo in it or something. So we need to play around with that, but stage one, get this thing fixed, get it to work in the ship, give us our bare minimum of our cargo pods that we can interchange and swap out. As I said before, if CIG creates new types of pods or different things that this thing can have in its cargo bay, I don't know, the exploration might have a vehicle dedicated one or so. Whatever they come up with in the future, we can obviously just do that as a diorama kit because all these are on magnets. You can just pop them in and out, and even if you fully finish your model and painted it all up and everything, these are still going to be so simple to swap out, which is fantastic. So that's been our major focus for this week. Haven't had a huge amount of time to do a lot on the Carrack this last week, but we've made some progress. Happy with the wings, happy with the turrets now, top and side. Happy with this first iteration of the sort of stored cargo pods, so that's cool. Next week, we're going to hammer on and start looking at the front landing gears, and the front bridge canopy needs. We've done a first test, which confirmed my suspicions that what I really wanted to do isn't quite possible. So I'm having to sort of like take it back a little bit. So be able to show off next week a couple of the first test prints of that and just explain my logic on the canopy. So that's it for this week. Thank you for tuning in. Short and sweet. Please keep an eye out for the paint contest finishing end of this week, or end of this month anyway, which is about the end of this week. Get your entries in if you haven't already. That's going to be awesome. John Crew is judging that for us, which is fantastic. What else is going on in general in JRDF land? We have... Obviously, teasers are out for our Q1 release of our first kit model this year. It's going to be tight. We'll certainly, hopefully, have announcements of that model by the end of the month, or at least tell you which weekend we're going to stream. We've got a few things happening in real life at the end of this month, so we might have to push it into beginning of Q2 to be able to fit it all in. Our initial plan is we're going to do 2 streams. We're going to do an initial stream to announce the kit, and tell you what it is, tell you what the dioramas are and everything, get the hype train started, and then put it on sale the week after on our stream. So it'll be usual sort of standard operating procedure for us. We'll start it off live, so that the top 10 of the people buying the kits will have their names lasered onto the boxes. Hopefully we might even do that live if I can get that all set up and get mics and cameras and stuff working up in the workshop. We might actually try and laser the names onto the boxes live. Either way, we will be launching this kit in the not too distant future, which is quite exciting. I like it. It's a nice kit. It adds into a series we've been doing for a while now, nicely from a scale point of view. So yeah, it works. And the dioramas are so cool. Awesome. Thank you very much. I shall see you next week. Ta-da.